2023 is almost over, and I want to talk about the decks that have done really well over the past year. Welcome to Dark Bear Dojo. I am Nick, and today we're going to be looking at the top decks from 2023. Why? Because I feel like it. That's why. I think it's kind of cool. As the year wraps up, we take a look at the decks and deck lists that have performed the best, because everybody wants to relive Silver Tempest format, right? So we're gonna do that, and there's gonna be a tier list somewhere in there. It's gonna be a little bit of subjective and a little bit of objective data that's going to be used to make that tier list. But anyway, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all kind of stuff tells YouTube. I really thought we were going to get through it without messing up today. If you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel. Other people should watch it. I have a personal goal of getting to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if we do, I have a really cool giveaway. But it's about time. Time's almost up for the end of the year, and we're almost. I haven't even said what that giveaway is going to be. It's this. It is an unlimited base set booster packs, completely sealed Blastoise art. It's not an Ever, it's not first edition, it's not Shadowless, but this is what is up for grabs if we hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So you don't want to miss that free booster pack from 1998, whatever, 1999. Who doesn't want one? So subscribe, and when we get to 5,000, I will talk about how you can win that pack. So, yeah, with all that said, we're going to go ahead to Limitless and Trainer Hell. The links to both of those websites in the video description. They are wonderful sites, and I highly encourage you to check them out. So, let's just get straight to it. So here we are at Trainer Hell, and you can see that we are ranking decks by number of points they've accumulated over the past 12 months. I elected to split the decks into their variants just so we can get a little bit more specific about the decks we're talking about. Some of these decks, and when we make our tier list for the best decks of the year, we're going to have to consider how long the deck has been out. We can't just say Lugia has the most points, therefore it's the best deck, right? Because it's been around a lot longer than Miraidon has been. So Miraidon's seeing a lot of success in the past, 2 months or so, but it hasn't been out nearly as long as Lugia. So that's something we have to consider when we make this tier list. But some of these decks, Mew taking up number 4 and 5 is really heartbreaking for me as an individual, someone who not only despises the Psychic type, but absolutely hates Mew as a Pokemon and Fusion Strike Mew as just a thing that's ever existed. So, not a ton of fun. It is really cool to see Regigigas on this list. The single prize Regis. I didn't think that it would be up there, but there were a handful of really dedicated players who played Regis a ton, were really good players like Rahul Reddy, who took Regis frequently, did well with it, and kind of pushed it up there because they just got points with it so frequently. Other decks in here, every other deck kind of makes sense, right? There are a few that may be a little higher on this than I would have expected, like Giratina Lost Box being 6. That's kind of surprising considering how awful a lot of people in the community kind of feel it is. I actually saw a tweet recently where someone was like, can we just decide if it's good or bad? Because every other tweet or every other week, it's really good and then it's really bad and it's really good and it's just kind of annoying to go back and forth. And I agree. Is it good? Is the deck bad? I don't really know. There are moments, I feel like there are moments where it's like the best deck, and there are moments where it's, I was going to say something bad. It's not very good. I do, part of me feels like it's just brute force. Enough people played it, either at the beginning, or enough people are just really forcing this deck, and just by virtue of large numbers, you see it's about a 5% meta share. A lot of people are playing it, that it's going to get results naturally, which is kind of inflating how many points it has, just because people want it to do well. They refuse to give up on it, and I've guilty of that too with Single Strike Lugia, but that's not the point. I don't know what else is on here. Miraidon is pretty low on the list, but again, even though it's a very good deck, it just hasn't. We've only had it get results for the past 2-3 months. It's been out since the end of March. We've basically had it since April, or I guess mid-April, and now it's December. So that's what 6 months, something like that. We've had it like for like actual play, and it's been getting results for 2-3 of those. Something to consider when we make that tier list. Arceus Giratina for a while was just a very good deck, judge path, and hit pretty hard with both Arceus and Giratina, so not really surprising to see it on that list. Arceus decks in general are pretty good. We see another one with Arceus Duraludon, very, very popular pick for quite a while when Mew and Lugia were really big. Rapid Strike Inteleon, or Rapid Strike Urshifu Inteleon, again, part of it is just up there because it won NAIC. So if it doesn't win NAIC, is it up there? I don't know. So it has a couple of big placements, but after those really big placements, does it still fit there? Again, like I said, one person winning NAIC can really skew the results of a deck. And so again, after a couple of tournament performances, it hits here and there. I'm not really sure, but yeah. So this is Limitless's deck ranker based on points and everything. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go to Trainer Hill and make a tier list using maybe not all of these decks, but a lot of them. So here we are at Trainer Hill. When I do these rankings, it is not just how good I think the deck is right now. It's over the course of the entire year, which decks I feel like were the best. How would I rank them on a scale of 1 to, I guess, technically 16? All of these decks are very, very good. If they weren't, they wouldn't be on this list. So if you see the deck that you like to play, your favorite deck in C tier, it does not mean it's a bad deck by any means of the imagination. Also, this is partially my opinion. I'm going to use some of the information we saw previously at Limitless and my experience with decks, but it's also partially my opinion. So feel free to disagree and let me know in the comments how much you disagree, because that's everybody's favorite thing to do, is tell me I'm wrong. Now, we're going to start with Miraidon Flaffy. I kind of feel like Miraidon Flaffy belongs in B tier for really one reason. We've had it since April, right? We'll say like April 15th it was legal, and we haven't seen a lot of success until very recently. Now, is that because the card wasn't good, we just needed something else to make it better? We needed something from Paradox Rift, and we needed something from Obsidian Flames, and it took a few months before it came out, after it came out, before it got good? Maybe, that's probably partially it. We also don't know how well it would have done in previous formats. Like if you're like, oh, well, it's really strong against Lugia. Well, Lugia for a long time ran Dunsparce, right? In the original Stoutland Aurora Energy build of Lugia, it had Dunsparce. So like, how good would you have done against Lugia? And then you probably just would have moved on to the single strike version of Lugia sooner, right? If Miraidon was around. So not super convinced it would have done like extremely well if you put it Silver Tempest era, but that's a different story. I think Gardevoir has to be A. I think Gardevoir it has to be A. It is super, super consistent. I mean, it draws 1,000 cards. It hits for a ton of damage. It's been good since it came out, and I think you could stick something like Gardevoir in any format and it does well. Just because of how consistent and how hard it hits, and its ability to accelerate energy. It has everything you want in a deck, so that's kind of cool. Charizard is an interesting one. I'm not really sure where to place Charizard. I feel like it could be A, but I also feel like it could be B. So I'm gonna go lower, and if I feel like I have to reevaluate, we'll change that. But Charizard's really good, but again, over the course of the year, if you stick it into a different format, there's a chance that it just can't keep up with the Sablezards when it was really good. When you're hitting 280 or 250 with the single prize Pokemon, then Lost Mine and Cramorant and stuff, and it's an entirely single prize deck, and they're taking these big up trades. Yeah, you're gonna constantly one shot, but there's a chance that they also just destroy your board before you really get a chance to get going, because Cramorant hits for free. Things like regular Turbo Lost Zone Radiant Greninja can destroy your board pretty easily. Sure, you have a pretty good time into Mew, Single Strike Lugia, and other things. God forbid, a Stoutland comes into play in the Aurora builds of Lugia, and Lugia goes first, and you get a Charmander, and then just power up a Stoutland to just destroy and take 2 prizes on one of your little Charmanders or Pidgeys. It might not have been the best look for Charizard, so I don't know that we could just, again, put it anywhere in the format and have it do well. So I'm going to keep it in B. I think Lost on Giratina is C. I know someone's going to be upset about that, but I think it's C. I think it's too... It's been around for a really long time, and it comes in waves of popularity, and it just never really feels like it's always a good pick, or it could always be a good pick. It's just one of those things that I just don't feel it. I don't feel it in here as it being top. Lost on Box, on the other hand, is top. It's always been good since the moment it came out. Lost on decks were incredible. Everybody tried to counter them. Everybody tried to deal with them. We still see it be extremely we still see it be extremely successful today. It's always something we have to consider. You're always going to see the tournaments. Very, very good. Chien Pao, I'm going to also put that into C. Get out of there. I'm going to put it into C. Again, it's something that it's still pretty new. We're still trying to figure out how to make it work, the best builds of it. It's popular enough, and it does well enough to be on this list at all. It just, compared to everything else, it just doesn't feel great. Now, this could have been an incredible deck with Capacious Bucket. Now imagine you get a Chien Pao in the active, you get 2 energies, and then you can Capacious Bucket to get 2 more from the deck. Like, this could have been such a massive powerhouse of a deck, but it never had the chance. So again, if you stick it into any format, maybe it does better, maybe it doesn't. Obviously, they did not want to give us something like Chien Pao with Capacious Buckets that might have been too good, right? Especially in the VMAX era, you're just easily knocking out these VMAXs. So it probably would do better in older formats, but we didn't get to experience it, so we don't really know. Sablezard is B. I think Sablezard goes to B tier. It's pretty good. Actually, I think I'm going to put it down to C. It was really good for a little, and then it's kind of good now, and there was a really huge gap where it just wasn't that used. It wasn't very good. It got totally outclassed by every other version of Lost Zone decks. It just, kind of like at the beginning and the end of the year, it was good, and that was really it. So I'm going to keep it in the C tier for now. Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and Teleon, though, I think that goes into B tier. It's one of those decks that, like, it's always around and you always see people playing it and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I think my deck loses to that, but it was never too popular where you always had to be like, oh, how's my Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and Teleon matchup? Like, no one never really had to think about it, and that's exactly how Cyrus Davis won NAIC, because nobody was thinking about Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and they just said, I'm just gonna play whatever, and there they are winning NAIC with the Water Bear and the Espionage Gecko. That was terrible. So it's always, like, I feel like omnipresent Rapid Strike Urshifu. It's always around, it's always doing its thing, but it's never felt like, yeah, this is Rapid Strike Urshifu's time. It's always just been a good pick. But because you could have picked it any time, I don't know if any of that's making any sense. It's good. It's fine. You can pick it up and probably do well with it at almost any time of the year. Maybe not so much when Single Strike Lugia was, like, incredibly popular, because Single Strike Urshifu and the Lugia and the Tyranitar could just very easily one-shot your VMAXs, and you don't take any one-shots on them. You can't even Rapid Flow and knock out the Archeops. So, like, you really don't have much of an answer for them. So that kind of stinks. But other than that, it's pretty good. Maybe when Mew was, like, way more popular, it wasn't as good. Yeah, that's kind of why it's in B. I think both Mews, we're going to talk about both Mews, I think they just have to be an A, right? And it sucks to say that. Like, I don't feel good about putting it in A. Like, I'm not happy about this, but unfortunately, it's really, really good. It has, when I said Gardevoir has everything you want, this has draw, energy acceleration, really good damage. It has, what's the other thing it has? It has free retreat. That's something that Gardevoir doesn't have. It has free retreat. You have the energy acceleration, but without damaging your own Pokemon. That's really cool. And you have the ability to increase your own damage with things like the power tablets. Fusion Strike Energy prevents abilities from affecting the Pokemon that it's attached to. I mean, come on. How much better of a deck? How many more tools do you need at your disposal? You have the option to attack with single prize Pokemon, just like Gardevoir does. You have a big tanky VMAX that does 310. You could, at the time, you could have thrown a Bravery Trauma on them. Now you're at 340. That's so stupid. You have the ability to deny prizes by using Psychic Leap and going back into your deck. And you don't even need to beat a V to do that. You just have to have a V on the bench, and you can copy Psychic Leap and go back into the deck. It's incredible. It has everything. It has everything. Lugia Archeops, I think it's the best. I think it was just the best. Maybe it didn't beat every single deck that it ever went up against, but let me tell you, there's a time where Lugia was 30-something% in the meta, 33, 35% in the meta, whatever. There was no doubt about it. You go to a tournament, you go to a regionals, Lugia is going to be there. Energy Acceleration, really good attacks. It has the ability to get rid of things like Path to the Peak, which after you set up your Lugia and you got your Archeops in play, you probably didn't care that much if Path stayed, but whatever. Especially when Quick Ball and Evolution Incense were in format, this deck was unbelievable. Aurora Energy for the Radiant Charizard, for the Powerful Colorless Energy for the Stoutlands. I mean, Powerful Colorless Energies for the Lugia V-Star itself. It might not have had as many tools at its disposal as something like a Mew, but man, the tools it had were absurdly powerful. And for that same logic, I'm going to put Single Strike Lugia at the top as well. Again, it was such a dominant force for such a long time. Maybe not as long as the regular Aurora build of Lugia, but the second Lugia rotation happened, Lugia just transformed from colorless Lugia, where like Radiant Charizard and Stoutland, to Single Strike Lugia. There was like no downtime for Lugia for months and months. It's arguably the best deck we've had in the past year, at least in my opinion, based on results, based on meta share, based on how much people hated to play it or how much it really annoyed. It's just probably the best that we've had in the year. And for me personally, on a personal level, Single Strike Lugia has been my favorite deck to play. And also the deck that got me to my very first day too. So it has an extremely special place in my heart and probably a little bit of bias. Reggie's, I think, is D. I think, I'm sorry, I know Vulcan Turtle loves Reggie's to no end. I know it's his favorite deck. It just doesn't keep up with the rest of these. You can get walled pretty easily by something as simple as like a Duraludon, and then you're just done for. And even if they do play a Path to the Peak to turn off Duraludon, one, it can get bumped, so it's not always a guarantee to stay. And two, how are you one-shotting not Duraludon? Like, you don't? I guess you could. Regigigas could one-shot it, but that means you need the Powerful Colorless Energies when they were in play. You need Choice Band or Choice Belt and the Path of Peak and Plague. You need stuff. You need to have a couple of cards in play to make this thing happen. And any good Arceus Duraludon player is just going to keep bossing that Regigigas up and KOing it, or picking apart the Reggie. That's the problem with Reggies. It's really easy to disrupt them. A well-timed Marnie, a Judge, after you knock out a Reggie that might already be in the discard for some reason, and now they have to not only find like an ordinary Rod or a Clara or a Super Rod plus another Pokemon Search, like, and they have to get energies into the discard, and it's just, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken to make Reggies work. You can get all 6 Reggies in play and not have the right energies in the discard. You have energies in the discard, but they might not be the right ones. Sure, Aurora Energy made that far, far easier, but Lost Zone decks kind of destroy this because they need less setup. Or even when they do get set up, you kind of just can't deal with it. Something like a Dragonite can be pretty problematic. I don't know. Just not a huge fan of Reggies at all. Maybe because I lose to them. I don't know. Never really good at dealing with them. So, again, a little bit of personal bias coming out here, I think. Lost on Gooch is probably... I think it's a C. I think it's over the course of the entire year. For a long time, we didn't really care about Goodra because you just like escape or a boss. And then the damage reduction that the Goodra takes is gone. We don't really care because Single Strike Lugia... the Urshifu just shreds right through it. Duraludon hits through it. The Giratina Star Requiem just instantly KOs it. If you were to play it now, we have things like Roaring Moon that would just instantly KO it. Plus Giratina that still could instantly KO it. Champao can hit super high. Gardevoir can hit super high. There's really no great matchup. I probably Miraidon would be like one of your better matchups, assuming they don't power up that Iron Hands fast enough and start taking 2 prizes with your Comfeys, and assuming that they don't knock out your Goodra V before you can evolve and start attacking with Rolling Iron. But if you can get that Rolling Iron off, things like some Lost Zone decks become really easy to beat, especially something like a Sablezard. Decks like Rapids, like Urshifu and Talion become pretty easy because they're doing essentially nothing to you. Miraidon gets really challenging. Charizard, I'm not really sure, but you gotta see, like, you have to really get rolling, to pun 100% intended, in order for this deck to start working, and it doesn't always do that. It might be a little bit too slow at this point, so yeah. Arceus Giratina probably falls into B. I think it falls into B simply, and I'm going to put Arceus Duraludon into B as well. And I'm partially doing that to give us like a little bit of a bell curve here, because that's realistically what would happen. It would end up being like a normal distribution. If you took like the best stuff, you're still going to get probably some kind of distribution like this. Arceus decks, they use Arceus to set up another Pokemon, right? Arceus has been great since it came out, whether you're using the Shady Dealings in Talion, Giratina, Arceus, the Duraludon, Umbreon, Flying Pikachu, whatever. Like, you can pair it with a ton of Vs and make it really, really good. Arceus Giratina wants to use Judge Path and then just smack you in the face with a really hard-hitting attack. Arceus Duraludon is looking to really just wall you out of the game. But both of these are a little bit meta dependent. If you don't care so much about Path of the Peak, if it's not going to bother you, if you are a single prize deck or you're above the damage cap of something like a Giratina, like Gardevoir EX could be, like the Urshifus are, you get that one. If you're playing Arceus Giratina, you're probably not going to get Star Requiem because you're likely going to use Starbirth. And also, it's hard to get 10 cards into the Lost Zone in this version. So you're not one-shotting these huge VMAXs, even with the Choice Belt. You're not, it kind of stinks to deal with single prizes at times. Sure, Arceus can do it, but still. And then the Arceus Duraludon, if there's no special energies or a ton of Path to the Peak in play, what are we doing? And we also have, again, things that can one-shot your big VMAXs pretty easily, like the Champao, like the Charizard, if enough prizes have been taken, and especially with the Defiance Band. Mew can do it, right? I mean, they just put a Path to the Peak in play, and then they just power tablet, repeat, Choice Belt, boom, KO. It's really not that hard. Single Strike Lugia can do it extremely easily with something like Single Strike Urshifu. Gardevoir can do it pretty easily. Not only do they use a single prizer, but they don't really care about Path a ton. I mean, you need Path to power up your Pokemon, sure, but I mean, they can get rid of it kind of easily between things like Lost Vacuum, Counter Stadiums, and Worker. And the fact that they just draw a ton of cards through Refinement and Shining Arcana, which are not blocked by Path to the Peak. So they're probably going to find a thing. Yeah, it just doesn't... You just don't care too much. If Rapid Strike Urshifu and Talion was all over the place, yeah, you probably have a good time as a Duraludon player. Even Miraidon Flaffy, they're not going to one-shot your Duraludon, and you will one-shot through most of their Pokemon unless they have Bravery Charms, which they do. So that's kind of annoying, but you can probably go boss KO something else and just... But still doesn't feel great to have to do, especially like on something that might have like 250. Now that Arceus is never going to KO it. Duraludon's probably not going to one-hit KO it anymore. just feel like it falls B. It's good. It's pretty good. You know, you might be able to pick up some wins. And the more I think about it, I feel like Arceus Duraludon's going to go C. I feel like Arc Duraludon's going to go C. It's just far, far too meta dependent. I talked myself down. And there you go. There's the tier list that I have. I want to know how wrong you think I am, so tell me in the comments. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, like I said before, like, subscribe, comment. Someone is going to get this booster pack, and it could be you. So, yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. I want to give a special shout out to the YouTube members Black Wins, Mike the Highest, Fernando Ortiz, Chin Pokemon, and Eric N. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click the channel member button somewhere at the bottom of the page. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself.